the Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim and Maddy Regan. Presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2-comma life.
Welcome to this episode of, what is it? Shatter Your Fishbowl podcast? Is that what we're going to call it?
I guess.
All right. Joining me today is, as usual, is Madeline, my daughter, head of marketing here at Prairie View, as well as leading our launch of Don't Shatter Your Fishbowl and Live Your 2-comma life book.
Yep.
So today, Maddie, what are we going to talk about?
So I was curious after, like I said, I have read the book. So
you're like reader one? Is that the thing?
Sure. I'll call myself reader one. I take that as an honor.
Right.
But so you talk about kind of one of the stories you put in there is one of the first fish bowls that, you had realized you had. So I just kind of wanted you to maybe tell that story and then we can kind of go into it from there because I think it's interesting to go back to one of the very first fish bowls you ever had. Yeah,
for sure. So I think, obviously, as we talk about fish bowls, it's all about your perception and how that perception keeps you the size that you are, whether you're big or small, but usually it keeps you small.
Yep.
And how shattering out of that fishbowl really helps you to see a bigger future and a bigger and brighter world for yourself or your 2-comma life.
Yep.
And so for me, in the book, we talk about the first memory that I have of the fishbowl is, where I grew up, it was in this old farmhouse. People can probably picture me. If you drive out in the country, it's the typical farmhouse that you would see that was built at turn of the century being into the 1900s. Now that we're in 2000s, I should probably clarify that. So built in the early 1900s. It was actually a Sears Roebuck home. I like to just go into that just a little bit. So if you're not familiar, if you're familiar with Sears used to be a company that was like Penny's or Kohl's or, this department store. And what actually happened was they got their start in the catalog business. That's how they really grew their business. They sent catalogs out to all these really small farming communities. It was when the printing press and things were really kind of coming around. The postal service was good. And so what they did is they started sending out these catalogs. And in the catalog, you could order all kinds of stuff because there wasn't the general store. And so you'd order it and it would be shipped out via postal service.
So it was mostly a country thing.
It was very country.
Okay.
And what happened was, if you think about it, it really was the internet of the day or the online of the day.
Right.
And so what would happen is in this catalog, you could actually order a home and they would ship out this house. It came, it's the construction type of it. It's called balloon construction, which means that most of the structure is held by the outside parts of the building. And so all the stuff on the inside, you didn't need to have some of the heavy duty stuff that you'd think about maybe in a house. And so it made it much easier for them to ship this house and build it. It just is a little bit aside. So this
it's one of those random facts.
Yeah, so this house was a Sears Roebuck house, and we had actually picked it up and moved it. So when I was a kid, I think and throughout the book, and if you know me at all, you'll know that I was really close with Grandpa, right? With my dad. And Grandpa was probably the biggest fishbowl breaker ever. There was nothing he was afraid to do. And so when I was about 7, we sold the house that we were living in, and he and my mom bought a old farmhouse, this Craftsman farmhouse, and picked it up from where it was and moved it up the road about 3 miles to a piece of property that had been in Grandma's family since the early 1800s. It was actually land grant property that was part of the Great Move West, I guess, to the point where, just as another side, it was interesting. We lived there about 15 years and we were doing something out in the yard and we found an old headstone from one of Grandma's great somebody's.
Oh, wow.
So just to put into perspective kind of what the setting was.
Right.
And so it's in this house, and in the front of it, it was really just all one big room in the front of the house. We had our dining room table on one end, kind of a gathering area in the middle, and then on the other end was our living room, TV room, that kind of stuff. I'd say probably, so we watched a lot of TV there. It mostly was where Grandpa and Uncle Dan and I wrestled. If we're being honest. So when I got to be in high school, to put in perspective how much we wrestled, when I got to be in high school, Grandpa was working out of the house, and when Uncle Dan and I got home from school, he'd come out, we'd put on Maury, the Maury Povich show, which is like, who's your daddy's like kid or whatever. We'd start wrestling. We broke the couch because but anyway, so that's the setting, right? It's this great room. That's our family setting. And Grandpa and I are there, and in the front of the house, there's this big porch that spanned the entire front of the house. And there's this typical old farm door for a front door. The bottom of it, maybe third of it was all wood. Yeah. The top 2/3 was clear glass. You could see right out of it. And what that meant was like, you're out in the country. We didn't have a curtain or anything. So like you looked, anybody came on the front porch, you saw them. Yeah. And Grandpa and I are sitting there.
What color was the house? I'm picturing it.
So it's white siding.
White. Yeah. You described it well. I knew it was white.
White siding with black trim around like the windows and that kind of stuff. And so we're in there doing something. We weren't wrestling at the time, but we were doing something and having a good time. And all of a sudden we hear a knock at the door, which was kind of strange. I don't know where the dog was. We had a dog that would usually like let you know somebody's there.
That was before it got run over? Or?
No, it was in the middle. That wasn't just a single time. And so we hear this knock and we turn and I see there's this sheriff sitting at the front door and I see Grandpa instantly go from we're having this great time, things are good, to the blood drained from his face. And it's that, oh, crap, pit of my stomach, everything falls. So he goes out, talks to the guy on the front porch, comes back in. And as he does, he's trying to put on like the happy face, Yeah. And he was like, yeah, that's my buddy Pete. He's like, he and I went to high school together. He was driving by, thought he'd stop in, see how we're doing. I was really glad he did. He's doing pretty well himself type of deal. We went back to the afternoon, but it was never quite the same. When
Grandpa was out there, like, did you have that sense when you were like younger in that moment? Like, were you going about your business, or do you feel like you felt the same way he felt looking at him?
Oh yeah, no, I was there. Like, I knew something was up. Like, and you just have that that sense. And so as Grandpa came back in, he kind of plays it off or feigns that he's that's all good. And I didn't know it at the time. I knew something wasn't right. Come to find out later that the sheriff was there to let him know that they're going to foreclose on the house. And it was a friend of Grandpa's, and he was kind of giving him an advance kind of heads up, like, hey, you got to get something figured out here type of deal. What
was Grandpa doing at the time for work?
Yeah, so at that time, he had a business that was failing, for lack of a better term. And for a lot of reasons, I mean, we go into all the reasons why, but this business was not doing well. So he was closing it, and he was working midnights in a factory. So the idea was that he wanted to close the business. What he should have done, he should have filed bankruptcy. He should have walked away from it, filed bankruptcy, but he wouldn't. He felt like he owed it to the people he owed money to and to his customers to make sure he closed it well. And so during that period, there was a couple-year period where his routine was he'd get up, he'd head to the business, work there usually until 4:30, somewhere in that neighborhood, come home, we'd have dinner. If we had like a sporting event, if we had something like that, he'd usually go to that. He usually tried to be in bed between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. Then
my ideal window.
Yeah, for you. Except he'd be up to start a midnight shift at the factory and work midnight to 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then leave from there to go to the business, and that was his routine. And so when you're in that place, for me as a kid, there was nobody bigger than my dad. Like, he was like the guy, right? And so when I learned that stuff, when I saw him that day, all of a sudden kind of like just crumble behind this facade, like all of a sudden it made me feel like, oh man, like things could get pulled out from underneath us at any time. Made me feel very vulnerable, made me feel very insecure. And for a lot of my life, I think probably even today, like I don't know that I fully shattered that bowl, but I think I don't take some of the risks that I should take that would help the business to grow faster, that would help us to have even a better life, because I go back to that moment in that living room. But what I've come to realize is, so to me, like I said, when I was a kid, my dad was bigger than life. Yeah. As I got to know him as an adult, you start to see through that veneer a little bit, and you get to see him as a person. But as I think back to that day, it was easy for him to be that larger than life person if there were no issues. But really that day, and so what I thought in the moment was like a chink in the armor. It actually, to me, kind of showed a bigger armor, right? Like that here you are, and you can figure out how to persevere, how to push through, how to work hard, how to be honest, how to do the thing that you're supposed to do no matter what. And so what was my fishbowl for a lot of years, because I pictured that as scarcity and as being nervous and not being able to really step into the risk that I should take. Today I view it completely differently. I view it as in that moment, it wasn't just him doing that, but it was God providing as well, right? It was God saying, I've got this. Even if we would have lost our house, we didn't. We never lost our house. I don't know what Grandpa did, but things were taken care of. But but even if we would have, God would have made sure that He saw us through that too. And so for me, part of that realization is, yes, that's my fishbowl. Yes, it formed me, and yes, it kept me from growing. I had to get out of that fishbowl. And part of getting out of it was realizing that in everything, God does provide. And so I can step forward in faith and know that even if I fail a little bit, He's still going to provide in that failure.
Well, and maybe the failure was part of the plan all along.
100%.
You just don't. I think that's just interesting to think about that. But I think what's most interesting to me is like the way that you've kind of gone through, like your perspective on that situation has obviously drastically changed over time. So like walk us through, I guess, like when was the first time you like went back to that memory and like realized like maybe I shouldn't look at this as scarcity? What did it look like to kind of like transform your view of that? And like, did it change even more over time? Like, was it in chunks? Like first you saw it this way and then you added this piece and saw it even deeper, or what?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you asked that or interesting that you do, because I think that for all of us, for me at least, the case was I didn't even realize how much that was affecting me. Right. It's that moment that's in the back of your mind that is like there. You don't know. And it's like when you're getting ready to take a risk, when I'm getting ready to take a risk and I'm hesitant, I don't know for sure why I'm hesitant. I don't know for sure what is keeping me back. But then if I trace it back, I'm like, oh, maybe that explains it. Like this is what was keeping me there. And
so like, would you say it's like analyzing those feelings?
It is. Well, you have to, absolutely. And I think digging back and saying, wait, why is this? And why is this? And obviously perspective changes. If somebody once said, if your perspective at 50 is the same as your perspective at 30, you wasted 20 years of your life. And so as you age, your perspective changes. And so for me, it was a gradual and then all of a sudden, right? Where like over time you start to recognize that was a fishbowl. That is why I'm nervous about this. I might be more of a risk averse person in some areas anyway,
right?
But this definitely is part of what's kept me there. And then as you start stepping out of that and living into the abundance that you've got, you get more and more confidence and more more confidence. And like I said, I probably still struggle with it today a little bit, but nowhere near what it was, 10 years ago.
Yeah. So I think like what I'm hearing you kind of suggest is like, if you're reading the book and you're like, okay, I want to, get out of the fishbowl I'm in, maybe your suggestion would be kind of like when you start to feel those feelings that are holding you back, such as, the trepidation, the fear, or the uneasiness, the uncertainty, whatever, you can kind of try to think and trace that back and be like, well, when's the first time I felt this way in this situation? Would that be
100%,
your suggestion?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And it's even like, and not everybody has those moments when they're a kid or whatever, but a lot of us do. And it doesn't even have to be a money related thing. Cause in that moment, I didn't know it was money.
Right.
I just knew it was bad.
Right.
And it's only after the fact that I figured out it was money, but because I knew it was bad and because I knew that it changed in a heartbeat, and I all of a sudden saw my dad as not the person that had everything together and could that's what created the vulnerability. And so it's like, as you're thinking backwards, it doesn't even have to be directly related to what you're feeling is holding you back. Yeah.
Well, and because I think too, like in general, shattering your fishbowl is not just about money. It's kind of beyond that. And that's the whole point. Like, it's not about having $1 million. It's not about the 2 Comma Life is not about literally having $1 million. And so I think just as you think about that, it's like very interesting to see, like, this isn't just something that's going to, like, living in abundance is living fully as who you are and all, and go down that whole list. And it's like, you slowly realize, like, wait, all of this was a part of my fishbowl all along, even though it's like you said, it's not about money. It's not about, these specific categories. in general, living in abundance your whole life and in every aspect, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. And like even now, I think about it frequently. And we could probably do a whole nother episode on it where you think about what it's like when you're first born. From like 0 to 5, every single day of your life, every activity is a new activity that you have to learn. Uh-huh. You have to get out of your comfort zone every day. Once you start getting into like grade school and high school, you have moments where that's the case. The first time you go to the bus stop, once you go the second day, you already know it. It's old hat, right? The first time you go into the lunchroom or the first time you go to try out for the basketball team, you have those in chunks. But once you get out of college, there ain't a whole lot of those things that you're doing now. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is we start to become complacent in like stepping out, and we get really nervous to take that risk. And so entering a new situation is something that's a big part of our fishbowl. So when you talk about living that 2 comma life, and it's more than just the money, it's more what that's a big part of is saying in all aspects of my life, where am I feeling like I want to do something, but I'm scared to? And how do I take that step in faith? And so I think about some people we'll meet with that are in their 50s and they're not super happy with their career. They're maybe wanting to do something different. Kids are out of the house. And I'm thinking one client in particular, she's 52 and she's like, I've always wanted to be a nurse. Go be a nurse.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fear and trepidation around going to do that. Because if you think about it, it's scary to go back to school. It's scary to stop doing this work to do something different.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if going back to school is going to take you 2 to 4 years, whatever the number is, and you're done at 56, you could be a nurse for 15 years till 70 and still retire at a reasonable age and have a whole second, but it's that fear of stepping out. Now, if that was the case and she was 22 instead of 52, all of a sudden she's like, well, yeah, I go to college, I'm going to become a nurse, I'm going to do that. And it's because you're used to those things. And so when you think about it, it goes to all areas of your life. How do I get out of that fishbowl and really live that 2 comma life?
Well, and I think like what you just brought up too, kind of so there are going to be fishbowl moments, that do stem back to things that are from your childhood or from a certain point in your life, some experience you had. But then there's probably other fishbowl moments that are just you're stuck in a loop, or you just in general are an anxious person, or, go down that list and you can't necessarily tie it back to one specific moment.
For sure.
But still, it's analyzing, okay, I have this feeling. Where is this coming from? Is it a memory? Is it just in general, I feel this way? Like what, analyzing. And then you say all the time, like you say the monster and then it's not so big, And so I think what I'm hearing you say is that's kind of where it starts, regardless of if you end up finding out that part of your fishbowl is tied to a memory or just a general experience, something about you, whatever it may be.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I try to live my life with is usually the thing that I'm most scared of doing or dreading the most is the thing I need to do the most.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm dreading walking into a new church, that's probably what I need to do the most. Or if I'm dreading thinking about sending my kid off to college, probably what I need to do the most, and that goes to all aspects of your life. And so even like working out, right? Yeah. I don't work out for 20 years. The thought of going to the gym, you're like, I dread that the most. Yeah. How do I need to do the most?
Yeah.
And so it's just, how do I create those situations? And when I feel that resistance and I feel that hesitation and fear, how do I go backwards and say, okay, no, wait, where's it coming from? How do I get over it? How do I push through it and shatter the fishbowl?
Yeah. I think something else that I was kind of wondering or curious about, just because we can be similar, we can also be pretty different sometimes. And as I was thinking about this whole idea of like part of your fishbowl being tied back to experiences, I feel like for me personally, there have been moments where like I'm literally living in the moment and I'm like, this could impact me down the line, or I can choose to like deal with it right now and it's not going to.
Yep.
And that's something like I've kind of thought about even before I read Shatter Your Fishbowl, and it definitely ties in there where I'm like, looking back and I'm like, there are moments I've been like, this is either going to shape negatively for me down the line, or I can kind of like stop it right here. Now that like you realize you have the fishbowls, and all of that, like, have you experienced anything similar to that? Or what has your experience been with like having new fish bowls, I guess?
It's a great question. I think that a big part of it even goes to what area of your life are you talking about, right? It might be really easy for me to shatter my bowl in my business world.
Yeah.
Or it might be really easy for me to shatter my bowl in my fitness world. I can push myself to new limits there. But then when it comes to a relationship, or when it comes to maybe traveling to a different country and a different culture, I can put myself into a different fishbowl and a feeling of scarcity there. And so, you have to kind of recognize what areas of my life does shattering that fishbowl come naturally and it's easy because we all have it. We're all successful. We all have those things. And so then it's kind of thinking about, well, how do I take some of those same things and apply it to these other places? And then recognizing in the moment, wait a minute, this is a self-limiting path. If I need to change this, if I want to continue to grow.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know. One of my last questions I'm kind of thinking is like, what would be like one takeaway for someone who is saying, all right, I have these fish bowls. What's my step one?
Yeah. So from my perspective, so in the book, we have 10 steps.
Yep.
And really, as you walk through that, I think that it just is a change in perception. It's a change in mindset. One of the things that I try to tell, there's two things I would say to everybody. When you're thinking about something that you think you want to do, chances are somebody else has already done it. Mm-hmm. If somebody else has already done it, so can you.
Yeah.
They're no smarter than you. They're no better than you. If somebody else has done it, so can you. The other thing to think about is the next 5 years of your life are going to go by, whether you want them to or not. Mm-hmm. They're going to go by. At the end of that 5 years, do you want to be sitting there and say, I did, or I wish?
Yeah.
And so when you think about those and you're like, man, I'm nervous in this area. I have this fishbowl. What's my step one? Step one is get the confidence. Look and say, other people have done this. There's no reason I can't do this.
Yeah.
Step two is then find yourself the motivation to be the one to do it, because in 5 years, you're going to be looking back. Just like right now, you look back and you say, man, 5 years ago, I wish I would have started running marathons. I'd be a marathon runner now.
Yeah.
You're going to say the same thing 5 years from now. So get the confidence to start with confidence that says I can do it, then get the motivation that says I want to get it done. And I think those two things are the very first steps to starting out.
I think that's funny that those are your fitting, I guess, is Brett or word, like that those are your two pieces of advice, just because like, we talked about in a previous episode how you shattering fish bowls has helped me shatter fish bowls, like maybe not unintentionally. Like a whole part of that is the attitude that you've already shown me without giving me the words of like, someone else has done it, just go do it. Like, so I think that for one, and two, like you're saying, and do it now, it's 5 years, you're going to wish you did it. And like, especially right now, like that we've all grown up, you have more time on your hands. Like you have been recently, especially been like, I've always wanted to do this, I'm going to do it. Yep. I've always wanted to write a book, I'm going to write a book. So I think it's very fitting, that those are two pieces of advice, because they're two things I see you live out every day. Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. So as we wrap this episode, can I share one bit of additional information on our old farmhouse to kind of bring it full circle? So
full circle? Sure. Full circle.
So something that people probably don't also realize is when we gutted the farmhouse from top to bottom, and redid everything. And one of the things in the attic, there were a bunch of different contraptions up there. And so this house went through the stage of no electricity, nothing. And then it had gas lights. So they had gas wires or gas pipes where they lit a candle like with gas lights. And then it had electricity.
Did you have a wagon too?
Yeah. So the furnace that we had went from originally it burned coal, then it went to oil, then it went to natural gas. I mean, But in the attic, there's all this stuff. And we couldn't figure out what it was. What it actually was the attic at one point had been filled with batteries, and they were taking the kinetic energy from the windmill out on the farm, storing it in batteries, and using that to power the electricity in the house. That's in the early 1900s. And what are we talking about today? We're talking about, can we get solar energy? Can we get, and so all of these things that are here, they're like, it just reminds me there's nothing new under the sun, right? Yeah. I mean, like these are things that have been in concept form in one way or another, which is really where the name Tesla comes from. If you think about kind of what's the pioneer today of that kind of stuff, Nikola Tesla is the guy that was doing a lot of this kind of work way back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so just as you think about some of that stuff, we talked about, you could order a house online or through the mail.
Yep.
Now we think it's revolutionary, or it was at one point, to have online ordering. We think that this wind energy and things are revolutionary. Well, we had a house built in the 1900s, early 1900s that had it. So
just another random fact you may not know.
It's just things that I like to share. So, well, thanks for joining us for this episode. Any questions, looking for additional resources, please head to pv-wp.com. Be well.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim and Maddy Regan. Presented by Prairie View Wealth and Tax Advisors. Live your 2 life. Learn more at pv-wp.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Retirement Readiness Podcast on your preferred podcast platform.